Hello everyone. Well, I am in a spring mood, so today we are going to paint a spring bouquet using a reference photo by Evie Schaefer that I found on Unsplash. I'll link that below so that you can pull it up and look at it while you're painting as well. And I am going to tell you another Alaska story today. If you're new here, my name is Teresa. I'm a surface pattern designer and watercolor artist. So this is what we're going to paint today. I love these colors. I think I may add a little extra here. In fact, you know, I like threes, so I may do one of these smaller over here. Maybe we'll rotate it a little bit and have this curving this way maybe, and some going that way. I don't know, we'll see how that works. So first let's mix up our colors. Well, the most obvious color is peach, and we know how to mix that, right? We've mixed this one several times. We are going to, this time, I think I'll use permanent rose. Sometimes I use opera pink, but today I think I want permanent rose and cadmium-free orange. That's a good one. All right, let's test this out. Okay, that's going to be really good for these little things and the darker parts of that flower. Now, if I just water it down a little bit, I bet I can get, yep, the lighter one. And if I water it down even more, I will be able to get that very pale, oh, sorry, that very pale color. Okay, perfect. Now, what about the shadow color? Well, I bet if I add a little blue to that, maybe even a little green. Let's try that. So I'm going to take that same mixture, just a little bit of it. And if I add just a little bit of this green-blue mixture I have here, that is sap green and Prussian blue is what that was. If I mix that in with that peach mixture, okay, that might be a little dark. Let's try to get it a little bit more of the peach in there. Let's take a little bit more of that. Okay, now I bet that will work well for the shadows. So I'm just going to put it right here. I think I want more peach in it. So let's add a little more peach. That's okay, but okay, I think that's better. That will be better for our shadow right there. Okay, then let's see, what else do we have? We have a lot of green gold, and we probably don't even have to mix that color. Let's take a little bit of this green gold. Green gold or olive green would work. Let's first try the green gold. I need this. Yes, green gold is going to be perfect. All right, what else do we have? We have some yellow. We'll just use, you know, cadmium-free yellow for that. We can use just straight sap green to get the darker parts. for that. Yes, that works great. And let's see, what else do we have? This darker stem. Let's try undersea green for that. Let's see what that looks like. How about let's try Perylene green. Oops, I ran out of water. What if we mix those two? Let's take a little bit of each. I like that better. Okay, so we'll use a mixture of undersea green and Perylene green. And I think for the red, alizarin will be perfect. Let's go a little darker. Yep, that's going to be perfect. Let's see, there's a little blue in here. Those little flowers, so let's try cerulean. I think that might be nice. Yes, light cerulean. Okay, I think we have our colors. All right, first let's start with our rose, since that's our hero. It's the largest one, so let's start with that. And I'm not going to try to duplicate this exactly. I'm just using it mainly for composition and colors. So let's do a rose. I want it a little off center. So we'll just do a couple of, just a few little strokes like that. And let them get larger and larger. And more faint. Might need a touch more than that. A little more water. And I'm going to move up in brush size. Too much. You can make it as large as you want it. Must have been a little something in my brush because there's a little bit of a dark tone there. That's okay. We could put it, I can see a little yellow in here. So I might grab a little buff titanium. Add a little bit of extra color in here. Let's make this one a little larger. I'm gonna work quickly and I'm gonna grab just a touch of yellow as well to mix with that. All right, and while this is still wet, try to make that other bloom right over here. That's a little darker. A little darker down at the bottom. Maybe not quite that dark. All right, now I want another one down here. And I've kind of gotten this off center from my page, but that's okay because we can cut this down to whatever size we want. Put a smaller one right there. I think I want to add a little bit of a yellow center to that one. Our picture does not have it that way, but I think that would be kind of interesting to have just a little bit of yellow there, so that we're looking more, you know, the flower's looking this way, but we can see the center. And then on this one, we're not going to see the center. And then this one, we're looking straight on. And that way we've got flowers going in different directions. Okay, let's see. So now I'm just going to make my way around our 3 flowers here, adding in all the little elements that are on our photo, and I'll add some extra in at the bottom like I was explaining, and I think that'll be pretty easy to follow along with. How about I tell you another Alaska story? You guys have been asking for another one, so today's the day. So we lived in Anchorage. So my husband had to go to the Delta Junction, Fort Greely area to fill in for someone while they went on vacation. I was in college, so he went up, and I just went on the next weekend just to spend the weekend with him. Now this was in the middle of winter, and it is a 6-hour drive from Anchorage. And the road that you go on is, you know, there's not a lot of traffic, especially in the winter. You could actually drive for hours without seeing another vehicle. There was a blizzard when he was going up, and there's not many places to stop along the way. And keep in mind, this is before cell phones, okay? So you really had to plan out your trip. And he was going alone. And then, like I said, the next weekend I did it. I went up alone, and we planned out, I stopped, I think in Glen Allen, and made a phone call. I had to call my mother and tell her where I was. And then he would call when he had time. Just the place where he was working, you know, it wasn't like there was one phone that I could call in on. He could be anywhere over the area. So he would call my mother about when he thought I'd passed that check-in station, and just make sure that I was, you know, making progress and okay and everything. And so one of the places where I stopped was the lodge that I told you about in another story. And I'll link that one up here in case you haven't heard that one, and I won't tell you anything about it, so I won't ruin the surprise. So, but that is one of the locations where I stopped and phoned in. You're going through this area where, you know, first you're in the mountains and you're on the mountain. So when it's snowing, it can be really hard to see. And, you know, if you start sliding, I mean, you could easily slide off the highway. And it was kind of a treacherous drive in the snowstorm. And the whole trip is not in the mountains. There are several flat areas as well. And obviously we both made it just fine. But on his trip, he had a more eventful trip than I did. So he was driving along, and a gray sky and the snow's really white, and he could only go about 30 miles an hour because the road was covered with snow. And, you know, as you can imagine, Alaska is very efficient in plowing the roads, but out that far, you know, away from most everyone, it might take a while for the plows to reach that area. And it had snowed so much that he couldn't see the road. And if you didn't know where the road was, you could really be in trouble. You could end up off-road without realizing it. And so he was going, you know, 30, 35 miles an hour, something like that. And, you know, he's watching the road very closely to stay on what he thinks is the road. And all of a sudden, he noticed a little path across the road. So something had just walked across the road. And so he stopped. He couldn't make out what it was. He couldn't see anything. It was snowing pretty hard. And so, you know, he decides, you know, he wants to see if he can see what it was. And we had a minivan at the time. So he gets out of the minivan, but he keeps his hand on the handle just in case, because it could be anything. But it looked like just one, you know, one path. And so he's standing there and he's looking around, and he really can't make a whole lot out, but he can see that about 30 feet away from him to the side there's a little bit of a hill, you know, right off the road that goes about 10 feet high. And he's looking along that ridge, and then he sees a shadow. And he's just able to make out this shadowy figure. And just as he's focusing in on it, he sees this puff of air. A little, you know, this animal has exhaled in that quiet snow. And he realizes it's a wolf. And then, of course, he thinks, where are the others? You know? So he quickly got back in the car. And he said the wolf stood there and looked at him for a few minutes, and then they both went on their way. But he said that was one of the coolest experiences of just seeing that. You know, it was frightening, but realizing he was so close to the car, you know, it was okay. But so when I went up, it snowed on me as well, but not quite that much. I can only remember one instance where I was a little concerned about, you know, if it keeps snowing, I'm not going to be able to see the street. But, you know, I went through a little light snow, a few minutes of heavy snow, and I didn't have nearly the experience that he did. But when I got there, the thing that really surprised me, it gets very, very cold in interior areas of Alaska, of course, you know, in the winter. And I knew that it was going to be well below zero. You know, he had warned me that the temperatures were pretty brutal. And so I, of course, went prepared. And when I got out of the car, when I got there, you know, I bundled up, and it was 30 below. And so I knew to cover all the skin I could possibly cover. And I never felt 30 below before. I got out of the car, and it was a very unique feeling of it being that cold. I think the coldest I had seen it up to that point was about 15 below. 30 below was a huge difference. But when I got out, I did not expect the pain in my nasal passages. You know, at 15 below, you know, your nose hairs freeze, and that hurts. It hurts to breathe. If you've never experienced that, that's That's a very unique sensation. But at 30 below, it was like tens of thousands of tiny needles stabbing your nasal passages. It was unbelievable. That was an uncomfortable experience that I really didn't expect. But I'm glad I did get to experience the 30 below. That was fun. But I wouldn't want to do that again. I think one of the things that I miss the most, one of the many things, is the sound and the smell of snow, that snow air. But the sound of walking and driving on that crunchy snow is just a sensation I will never forget. And the peacefulness of it. It's so relaxing, that just that soft crunch of either your feet or your tires, either one, is just wonderful. In fact, the whole trip up, driving up, even though I was by myself, I really didn't feel afraid because I knew I had checkpoints, and it was just so peaceful. It was lovely. And, you know, I didn't hit a blizzard, so I wasn't worried about that so much. I was spared that little extra anxiety. It was just light snow, so it was lovely. So that's this week's Alaska story. A lot of my stories involve wolves. Not all of them, but a few of them anyway. Well, I really took my time with this painting. This took almost an hour to do it. I've cut it down a little bit, but I think I'll just let you listen to some music. I didn't want to speed it up because a lot of you have mentioned to me how much you enjoy just painting along real time with me. So I'm not going to speed it up. I have trimmed out some dead spaces, but other than that, there's not much editing on this one. And I'll just let you paint along with me. You can fast forward it if you like, and then I'll come in at the end and talk a little bit about what I did. Well, I started cleaning up. I turned the camera off, and then I just started looking at it, and I thought, you know, I really wanted something more over here. It just didn't feel balanced. So I just quickly added one leaf, and then that turned into 2 or 3 leaves, and then I filled in this space, and then I realized I'm not filming this. So I'm sorry about that, but that's all I did, is add those few little things. And I added some of our, what was that? Alizarin. I added some of that in for a little more depth to that flower. And at the last moment, I decided against adding any deep shadows, just because I like it the way it is. So you may be thinking, well, it's not centered on the page. That's okay, because if I put this around it, you can see it's perfect for an 8 by 10. So no worries, it's great. We'll just trim the paper down. Well, I hope you had fun with that, and I hope you're happy with your results. If you did paint along with me, please post it on Instagram using the hashtag paintingwithbeala so that I can comment on it. And if you enjoyed this one, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. I have a lot more fun videos coming up soon. And by liking, commenting, and subscribing, you're helping my channel grow. More and more people will be shown my content in their feed just because you liked or commented or subscribed. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.